good morning to you. Sunday morning coffee on Past the Wire TV with Big Race Jim. Shout out Shorebet Coffee. Shout out Amwager. The sun is up. Another cold day in Central Texas. Took the kids and my wife to the Austin FC soccer game last night. About 40 degrees. Light misty rain the entire time. Good thing we were covered, but it made it feel a little bit like home in upstate New York. So all good, ready to dive into some racing. And we saw the Saudi Cup yesterday. And if you weren't romantic about horse racing before the race, God, I hope you are after that. That was just a pure horse race with a fair bit going on. We'll check out the replay here in a minute, but just a fantastic race over there in Saudi yesterday with two tremendous race horses going nose to nose down the stretch. That was just pure excitement, really. And because of the weather down here in the south, we're getting a little bit of a preview from me instead of a recap on this Sunday morning. I'll talk about two races at Oaklawn today. The Razorback, which I think there's a decent amount of speed signed on, but I think the favorites should prevail in there. And then an interesting long shot that I liked in the Rebel. So let's dive into the Saudi Cup replay. And as they break from the gate, right, you have Forever Young all the way on the outside, and he does an exceptional job of getting over and getting into the mix. And what have we seen from this horse, especially in his races, from the Kentucky Derby? I mean, this horse is just not afraid to battle, right? He's not afraid to be around other horses. But when you have a huge field like this, you want to do what you can to avoid that kickback, right? So he's nestled in a pretty nice spot here. And then right behind him in that teal blue and white striped cap, you have Romantic Warrior. And you can see right about here, John McDonald, the rider on Romantic Warrior, needs to move outside, right? He's got four horses in front of him. And this was interesting. I liked how the camera angle changed. And when you look, Romantic Warrior is just kind of shot out of a cannon 5 wide and just puts a length on the field. Forever Young included, right? Like, look at that look at that move. Is that not as impressive gets? And normally Romantic Warrior would draw off, right? All the rest of these horses get discouraged. But you have Forever Young come back outside. And I think that was the key, right? He wanted to be able to see somebody in front of him to be able to run him down. And I'm not sure that angle from, his eyeball would have been as effective buried on the inside. So you have him come to the outside, even come, into the middle of the track almost, and he's able to run down Romantic Warrior. The rider for Romantic Warrior said the horse was accelerating the entire time. Just an absolutely tremendous race for both of these horses, and Forever Young gets the job done by ahead in what was, I know it's only February, but it'll be tough to top that as an early race of the year candidate. And what have we seen from Forever Young? I mean, that Derby of his to finish, third by a whisker. was just him weaving through traffic, getting bottled in down at the rail, being able to find some running room. And this horse just never quits. That's why I think kind of coming to the outside and being able to see the horse Romantic Warrior up ahead of him through that left eye, I think was the key to being able to run him down. Not to mention Forever Young's a world class horse, right? Lost nothing in defeat in the Breeders' Cup Classic. I don't think either. The ability for this horse to ship from Japan to Dubai, where he won the not the Dubai World Cup, the other one for 3-year-olds, to go to the Derby, to ship to the U.S., and then ship back to Japan, to ship back to the U.S., to ship back to Japan, to the Saudi Cup. It's just a testament to the connection to that horse, and just how good Forever Young is. Hopefully, you get to see him a handful more times throughout the year, but ultra impressive from both of those horses. And I just think we were treated to a really standout race between those two. Romantic Warrior, a true warrior in every sense of the word with that effort. Being able to bounce 5 wide around the turn like that and accelerate past the field and put everybody else to sleep other than Forever Young. That was cool. And the camera angle, I think, I was kind of laughing as I was watching the replay yesterday. The camera angle cut, and then he was already buried the rest of those foes that he was passing around the turn, and it just looked like well, what happened? Where did this horse come from? And just that sort of push button speed was super impressive. Again, just a quality horse race that if you weren't romantic about horse racing, that type of effort, that type of stretch duel really makes it exciting from a fan standpoint. So congrats to Forever Young, and let's hope that he stays healthy and we can see him a handful more times moving forward throughout the year. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. I'll dive into the Razorback and the Rebel here on Sunday Morning Coffee on Past the Wire TV, presented by Shorebet Coffee and, of course, our good friends at Amwager. Stick around.
Go. It's simplification and Javier.
All right, welcome back in. Let's put the PPs up. And there we go. I got it right this time. Skinner. I like Skinner in this race, in the Razorback, rescheduled to Sunday. I'm just gonna blow this up so we can see it a little bit better. I think that there's a fair amount of speed signed on here. You've got First Mission in here, who's quality, but I think this race sets up fairly well for Skinner. I think if you look back at that last race, he did some decent running towards the end of the race. You've got a late pace a late pace figure on the DRF of 122, which is rather high um, as far as late pace figures go. Um, so I think we're going to see some quick pace up front, allowing this horse to do some decent running late, like he typically does. And I think he's going to be able to get the money. But you've got a handful of other quality horses in there. Like I said, with First Mission. I'm trying to log in here to Equibase so we can pull up some, so we can pull up some race lens things and see how they see it. But yeah, I like Skinner. I think this is going to be a quick race up front, but I do think that the shorter priced horses will most likely be the ones to um, be doing filling out the exactas and wins and trifectas and whatnot. But looking at it right now, I mean, kind of surprising. First Mission was 5-1 on the morning line. Um, Pretty interesting. Skinner 6-1. I would have to suspect that um, those odds come down. This baddest good boy, um, yeah, I don't know. At 9-2, I'd probably be looking elsewhere. And banishing's probably pretty tough too, but I'll land on Skinner just um, because I think that there's a decent amount decent amount of early speed signed on here, and looking at the late pace figures from Equibase, Skinner is the third fastest late pace at a 109, behind Banishing at 120 and a half, which is solid, and then this Alexander Helios at 111.5. Baddest good boy, man, that's a crazy morning lineup. I don't really see that horse being much of a factor, in my opinion. But I've been wrong before, and will certainly be wrong again. But Skinner for me in the Razorback. I'll take this down real quick so I can just scroll, so you don't have to see me scrolling. But a couple of interesting horses that I thought were somewhat intriguing in the Rebel. And let's start with this Cole battle. If you've watched this show for any length of time, we know that this time of year is when horses, the 2-year-olds, the 3-year-olds, are still developing. So I really like this 84 buyer speed figure from Cole Battle here. I do think that suggests a step forward. That's not rocket science, right? I think that's probably in a lot of the um, handicapping 101 books that I've read and that I'm sure you've read too. But back-to-back wins, 84, you pair career top. I do think that suggests a nice step forward. Is that step forward going to be enough to put him in the mix? Like I said, those 2-year-olds into their early 3-year-old season can make sizable jumps. So would not be shocked if Cole Battle was in the mix. I think this Madacat Road, of course, Bob Baffert, quality horse, high purchase price, has looked pretty good. So again, another strong contender. But here's the one that really interests me: Publisher. If you go back and watch the the Southwest, this horse had an absolutely horrific trip. You've got Flavian Pratt coming in to ride you've got Steve Asmussen, which we were singing his praises last week for playing the tactics of these Derby prep races perfectly, um, playing the track bias perfectly. This horse was improving through his maiden tries, four of them. Still a maiden, but we've seen goofier things happen in horse racing. I think dropping him in this spot again off of an absolutely horrendous trip last time in the Southwest. Steve Asmussen, Pratt's coming in to ride. I think Asmussen feels like he's got a decent runner here. And if we're getting anywhere close to this 20-1, I mean, I, I, I like this horse a lot. And one thing that I do like about the Race Lens product is that it does give you, you can adjust your sliders and based on the factors that you like, which is great, right? You can adjust the factors that you feel play more heavily in certain types of races. And, um, the way I've got my Race Lens set up, this horse has got an 11% chance to win. The top horse is Tistastic on this. My output, you know, 13-14% chance to win. So based on that alone, publisher I think is right in that mix, and I think you have an opportunity here to lean on Asmussen and Pratt and see what the what's the play, right? Why is Pratt getting on here? Why is Asmussen dropping this horse in here? You probably have to figure it'd be a little bit of a stiffer company than the Southwest. I just think he's got a gut feeling that this horse um, is rather capable, and at 20-1 in these prep races where goofy things happen, like we saw last week, and horses can take a step forward and run some pretty nice figures. And his past figures too, 81 buyer last time with that troubled trip, 92 in that maiden special weight two back. Um, his figures are fit with the rest of the field, so I'll be interested to see how well publisher runs for Asmussen and Pratt here in the Rebel. I really like that Bullard initially, but unfortunately, he's going to scratch. Smokin' Wicked is back in here as well. Who? Let's see if we can find him quick. There we go. I almost looked like an absolute genius in that hopeful where he finished fourth at 32-1. I liked him that day. I also liked him in the Saratoga Special, and he ran rather well, right? And perhaps he's coming back around, but he's kind of knocking around with the Louisiana breds. So now he's back in open company. Um, Soft spot in my heart for Smokin' Wicked. Fun horse, always tries, likes to be out in front, out on the lead. Although the last two times he's kind of changed up those tactics, and it seemed like it worked out well for him. But again, he's kind of just beating up on Louisiana breds, which he's proven that he can handle himself well in open company. So I'd be interested to see if maybe those last two races were a bit of a confidence boost for him. But again, I do think he's still probably a cut below these, and I'm most interested in publisher here at some pretty long odds. All right, one more quick break, and then we'll come back. And I've got some thoughts on California racing after seeing some discourse on Twitter and having some recent conversations with some players out there. So we'll see what the future holds for California racing, but I have some thoughts. We'll be right back, and you can hear those. Stick around. welcome back in Sunday Morning Coffee. I'm Big Race Jim. You're watching Past the Wire TV. And as we've done the last 2 weeks, in this final segment called The Last Sip, where I just kind of dish on what I think is going on around the industry. Last week I talked about ADWs and fixed odds and prop betting, and why people think that racing is just neglecting to flip a switch and make those things available. If you want to hear more about that, go back and check out last week's episode. But today I'm going to talk about California racing as we dive into the last sip here on Sunday Morning Coffee. So I remember a few years ago, maybe it was probably 2012, 2013. So yeah, 12 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. I remember talking to some folks at Naira, and I was, they asked me like, "Oh, what do you think the best winter circuit is?" And I said California. I've always enjoyed watching California racing. I think the turf racing is more competitive and more compelling than New York racing, New York turf racing, and even Florida turf racing. And the person I was speaking to, corrected me and was like, Florida is the best winter circuit. And that was, like I said, 10, 12 years ago. And maybe that was an early indication that, perhaps I wasn't looking in the right spots, or peeling back the layers of the industry to kind of see what was really going on. But fast forward to now, and what have we seen happen in California? Um, you had all of those, horses dying and breaking down at Santa Anita. To their credit, they've made a ton of track improvements for safety, and the statistics would suggest that that's been incredibly effective and working. But what's happened on the on the actual racing and wagering side? You have a management company in First Racing that wants seemingly nothing to do with racing. Would much rather get out from under Santa Anita as a track operator, and the quality of racing has dropped significantly. The handle has dropped. I saw an article the other day that said that 2024 handle was down in California all across the board, and that brings me to the point. That is a major problem when you have no other source of money coming in to support racing in a state like California. New York has the VLTs. You have places like Kentucky, where Kentucky's sort of its own kind of animal, really. But you have the sports books at the racetracks. You have the online sports books being forced by legislation to partner with the racetracks, and those tracks are getting a kickback of some sort of licensing fee and some sort of revenue share to continue the growth of that industry. California doesn't have anything like that. California has horse betting handle to supplement its tracks, to add into its purses, and that's an issue. And fully aware, right? The other end of that is absolutely an issue as well, right? When you could look at it two ways, right? California needs some help, whether it's from alternative forms of gambling, state funding, whatever. But the other side of that is like, in places like New York, it's like, oh well, New York racing is only being propped up by VLTs and state funding and whatnot. So fully aware that there's probably something in the middle there for the overall health of horse racing, but nobody's willing to have those conversations to find it, right? You have in California, no sports betting. You have some card rooms on the reservations, but that's it, right? There's no casinos, there's no expanded gaming in any real beneficial way outside of the tribes. And you had these these guys come in a couple years ago and try and get um, sports betting on the ballot. You had FanDuel and DraftKings try to get sports betting on the ballot in California, and it got defeated. So I think when you look at California racing and them being solely relying on handle to support their industry, and handle continues to go down, I'm not sure what if that is, that's got to be the wake up call that you need, that we got to try something different. um and I can't help but laugh, but a handful of years ago they started that like weird, I don't even know what it was called. It was like a 3 by 3 by 3 where you needed to predict the first three finishers in order in three consecutive races. And it was like a 24% takeout. And the first day they did it, there was like $80 in the pool or something crazy. And then like you never heard about it again. Kudos for trying, but that's not what racing needs, especially in California, to grow handle. Right, racing needs lower takeout, simpler wagers, simpler bets to allow people a better opportunity to keep that churn going, to be able to cash bigger tickets, right? So lower the takeout. California is at 20% or over 20% for a lot of their pools. Lower that, please. Higher minimums for bets, dollar trifectas, $2 pick sixes, right? That forces people to be a lot smarter, make more efficient bets, and it naturally grows the overall handle. I mean, these are simple things, but it just doesn't seem like anybody wants to have those conversations. From what I've heard through the grapevine, the state legislature is sympathetic to the horse racing industry. Regardless of what the narrative might be out there, that California and their classic left wing policies want to shut down racing as a whole. From some of the folks that I've talked to, that really couldn't be further from the truth. So at least that's a positive for California. But they didn't run the fair circuits. They closed Golden Gate. They brought everything down to Santa Anita. Handles down, but purses are up. It just seems like at a certain point, and I think we're already seeing it, that financial sleight of hand perhaps is going to eventually run its course. And you just kind of hope for the industry's sake, for California's sake, for all of the employees and everybody that's hand touches California racing. You hope that it's not too late to reverse that trend. But I guess we'll see. So there you have it, another edition of Sunday Morning Coffee with Big Race Jim on Past the Wire TV in the books. Shorebet Coffee, thank you. Amwager, thank you. Another fantastic platform. like I was telling you about last week, I love the ability to just type a horse name in there, and all of their races come up. You don't need to remember what day you saw this horse, what race it was, what track. Just remember their name, type it in, and it comes right up. So thank you all again for another episode. Good luck if you're playing. Publisher for me in the Rebel, Skinner for me in the Razorback. Have an excellent rest of your Sunday.
Nobody does it better.